Hi and welcome to A3 Cross-Site Scripting. So first our definition. Cross-site scripting is abbreviated as XSS, and XSS flaws occur whenever an application takes untrusted data and sends it to a web browser without proper validation and escaping. Now validation refers back to input validation about which we spoke in A1 injection attacks. Now escaping has to do with something called output encoding. We will discuss about it in some time. Across Cross-site scripting allows the attacker to execute scripts in the victim's browser which can hijack users' session, websites, or redirect the users to malicious sites. Now under security weakness, the cross-site scripting is most prevalent web application security flaw. XSS flaw occurs when an application includes user-supplied data in a page sent to the browser without properly validating or escaping that content. There are two different types of XSS flaws, stored and reflected. I am also going to refer a third type which is sometimes the part of the attack of the other two types. Let's go and talk about them now. So the type of XSS are reflected, otherwise known as reflective, and that basically targets one victim at a time where the actually script is either reflected back in the victim's browser so that they can see something, or it's been executed in the victim's browser and they are unaware. The next is store, can also be called permanent, can also be called persistent. You will see it describes for any of these titles. Now for a stored XSS vulnerability, that means an actual trusted page has been infected, and so all users that browse to that page will be poisoned by that stored XSS attack. DOM-based XSS is something that occurs on client side in the browser. However, the DOM, which is document object module, can be the target of either reflective or stored attack. So first, let's talk about XSS reflected attack. One of the vehicles that can be used to carry a reflected SSS attack is a phishing attack, and everyone is pretty familiar with phishing attack. Usually they come in form of email, and in that email would sort of link. Now that part of link may be legitimate or non-legitimate, and append into that link would be a malicious script. When the victim clicks that link, it would send to the web server of the site. However, there would be some sort of vulnerability within the web pages, and so there is no output encoding which neutralizes the response. And so when an HTTP response actually gets back to our victim, there is execution of malicious JavaScripts that occur in the victim's browser. It could very execute without users' knowledge of even occurring. Now for stored cross-site scripting, this is where we have a trusted website that at some portion of it has been compromised. Generally, it can be replacement of images. It could be injecting of iframes that have malicious JavaScript within them. There is a vulnerability that existed and attacker took advantage of that. Could have been reflected XSS or maybe a SQL injection vulnerability. And so the attacker was able to insert its malicious JavaScript into a database or into a file, and so it gets reflected back and serves backup to the web pages. And so when the victim visits the site and say if it's some image upon loading, viewing the page, there is an onload where an image, or in this case replaced image with malicious script, will get executed. And then when we have our victim, so when everyone who visits the site would be infected. Now the DOM-based XSS. The DOM is an acronym for Document Object Module, and this is something that your browser does behind the scenes for you. It's an actual true representation, every single HTML page and every single session item that you may have inside your browser. I am showing an example of one in the screenshot. Now this gets attacked. It can be target of reflected or stored XSS attacks. What is usually of interest is the cookie which is highlighted. The cookie is going to contain credential information, and of course by capturing the cookie, the attacker can follow up with subsequent attacks such as brute force attacks, session injections, and things we talked about in A2 broken authentication and session management. So the DOM based XSS usually goes hand in hand with other main types. Now let's take a look at some sample cross-site scripting vulnerable code. So here we have a simple variable called first name which just got out of a request object. It's being cast to a string and then assigned to a local variable called first name parameter. Now the problem with the use of the local variable first name parameter is that there is no sanitation or no cleansing or input validation of the value that was placed in the first name variable. And this can cause a lot of problems. It allows the attacker to replace any value what they like, including JavaScript code into the variable value instead. And so, because the value is immediately stored in the local variable and used throughout the program, and more than likely sent to the browser without any output encoding, this makes it a cross-site scripting vulnerability. Now, if we take a look at the way some of these cross-site scripting attacks are done, we can see that there is a legitimate URL. In this example, it's mybank.com with submit form. But appended to that is usually some sort of location redirect that will send the request or send the cookie to the attacker's website. And of course, that can lead to session fixation and other types of attacks that we discussed about before. Now for stored cross-site scripting, an example of this would be sample HTML code below where we have an image and the source image has been replaced. Instead of having the file name, we instead have the location of an evil hacker's website, and of course they grab in the document cookie, the cookie that's stored in the DOM. So now our case is on Sammy Camper. He is famous for writing some JavaScript which he actually wrote in cascading style sheet to, to get friends to like him in MySpace. What he was able to do is propagate his JavaScript so that anyone that clicked on his friend's page have this same JavaScript code inserted into their page. And over 24-hour period, he was able to have a million friends like him. And the display that occurred on everybody's page that got affected was written Sammy is my hero. So this has become very well known cross-site scripting attack that was done in past.